welcome to You the Boss podcast, episode 72. I'm your host, Pam, and today we're going to be talking about you being the boss of your mind. You being the boss of your mind and how those thoughts shape your outcomes, and basically how you can take back control of your life. Have you ever noticed that two people can be facing a situation and they walk away basically with two different results? Maybe it's someone, two people got laid off at the same time, and one of those people spends the next 2 years, complaining about them getting laid off, saying how horrible this has been to them, how life altering this has been to them, and pretty much just kind of circling the situation all the time. Maybe they've already gotten a different job. Maybe their hours are different. Maybe they had to go into retail just to be able to, have a job and continue on. And then maybe that second person, they landed a different job in some capacity right away. And you might think to yourself, wow, that other person is so lucky. Person B is so lucky. They have been able to land another job. What if the biggest factor isn't luck or talent or circumstances, but your thoughts? Today, we're going to be breaking down how your mind shapes your reality and how to stop letting it run on autopilot. What you think about becomes reality. And I know that, a lot of the time we see different memes online and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about $1 million. And like, that's the example that we use whenever we're told that what we think about is what becomes a reality. But I want you to really think about the influence that your mind has. The formula is you have a thought and then you have an emotion. From that emotion, there's an action and then there's a result. And then this is the loop. This is kind of like the thought loop. Your mind develops this thought, and sometimes you can't really control the thought per se, and you can't help the emotion that it invokes. But the part that we can control is how we react, which ultimately affects the result. Your unconscious mind believes is kind of like how you're driven. Your subconscious is going to see that you made a vision board this year. It's going to see that you put these different things on the board. Maybe you put multiple trips on airplanes. Maybe you wanted to reach a certain number of followers or subscribers on your channels. Maybe you put yourself climbing the corporate ladder. Maybe you put yourself speaking to a bunch of people in a boardroom. Your subconscious mind doesn't focus on the how. It doesn't focus on the steps. It doesn't focus on, well, how are we going to get there? Your subconscious mind just sees that thought and it believes it to be true. And what it does for the brain is that it focuses on making it true. So when it comes to how you respond to different things, we don't realize how much we are on autopilot and how much everything around us affects those last two steps when it comes to a thought. We don't realize, the average person doesn't understand, how important it is to what it is that we say to ourselves. Self-talk based on like the amount of TV we consume, how much time we spend on the internet, the music that we listen to, the people that we have close in our lives. We don't recognize, because we're on autopilot, we don't recognize just how much those different factors affect our thoughts and our thought process. Simply put, when you keep giving yourself, like if you're surrounded by people who are negative, it's not anyone's fault per se. It's just you've been given several things in life, handed a couple of cards that, weren't the best. Maybe you got laid off, you lost a loved one, you're going through relationship troubles, or Maybe it's not all of those things at once. Maybe it's just one or the other. And if you're surrounded by people who are negative, they're going to advise you based from their circumstance. Basically, kind of like dirty water is not going to clean dishes. It's just going to make the dishes dirtier. So when we think about person A and person B and the different opportunity that happens when, one of them lost their job and two of them lost some jobs and one person went this way and that person went that way, it's because their mental narratives are different. And that's why they have different outcomes. So think about everything that we consume on a day-to-day basis and recognize that your thoughts don't just describe reality, they create it. If two different people look at a situation differently, neither of them is necessarily wrong, but what turns out to be based on their reality is what comes to fruition in their loop, what comes to be. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how your mind defaults to self-sabotage. I know that I've spoken to a lot of people about this topic. They'll say to me, like, I just feel like I'm always self-sabotaging. I always feel like I put myself down. I put myself in these situations, even though everything is great. And there's no reason for you to shame yourself. There's no reason for you to shame yourself. There's no reason for you to talk down to yourself and say, oh my gosh, I'm in self-sabotage, I'm being bad to myself, and all those things. That's not really necessary. And the reason that's not necessary is because your brain is wired for survival. It's not wired for happiness. When you think about cave people and they were, we look at them and we say, like, how the different things that they did and how different we are, and maybe even how much we've evolved. But we have to remember that their brains are very different than our brains. And so their brain was wired for survival. They were to stay alive. So food, water, clothing, and any imminent danger, taking it out. There wasn't necessarily a thing such as happiness. And so I want to talk a little bit about mental traps, the negativity bias or the outlook of everything as a catastrophe. When something goes wrong at work, it's, oh my gosh, this is devastating. The world is falling apart. Maybe, the next couple of weeks are going to be super busy because XYZ. And you go down the spiral staircase. You spiral, you're going round and round in circles. And, these things are still going to happen. They're still going to be, but everything is a catastrophe outlook. And then there's the all or nothing, the type of person that, they need to get everything exactly right, or no matter what, it's wrong. When you put in an address into a GPS and you miss an exit because maybe you were texting and you weren't supposed to while you were driving, or you were having a conversation with someone in the car and you got distracted and you missed the exit. You don't look at the drive to your location. You don't look at it as a failure. You just see that you were rerouting. So the all or nothing thinking is saying, like, this trip was a failure because I missed that exit. You're not broken. I want you to know that you're not broken. Your brain isn't broken. It's simply that your brain is doing its old job in a new world. We've become so conditioned with being on autopilot. I sometimes think that the commercial that I forget what appliance it was, but it was like set it and forget it. It might have been like some oven or a crock pot of some type. And it was like a set it and forget it. Like, you don't need to think about it. You put all your dinner in this one container and like everything gets cooked and everything is done and you don't need to think about it and nothing's going to happen. And while that is a great invention, for someone who may be making a dish or anything like that, we are treating our lives this way. So we're walking into things being on autopilot. And so it's not that your brain is broken, it's that we've conditioned ourselves to be functioning in a world that no longer exists. And I'm here to let you know that you are not your thoughts. When your brain says to you, I'm being stupid, that was a stupid thing to do. What are you doing? Get your stuff together. Like, all those different things. Like, you're not your thoughts. So I want to pose this question to you this week and saying, what if we started observing our thoughts? What if we started thinking about thoughts as passing clouds? When you take a moment to look at the sky and the clouds are just going on by, you don't absorb every single cloud. Every single cloud doesn't rain or have rain in it. You know, your mind is like with a radio playing in the background. And sometimes you'll hear a song you really like and you get up and you dance and you're jamming. And then sometimes it's playing a commercial that you've never heard before, does not apply to you, doesn't apply to anyone you know, and you let it play. What if we started to treat our thoughts that way because we started to observe them instead of just fully letting them take over? So, right now, as you're listening to this episode, I want you to take a moment where you pay attention to a few of your thoughts. Notice them. Maybe right now you're thinking about your plans for next weekend. Maybe you're thinking about you need to go get the groceries after work, or a trip that's coming up, or you have a big deadline at work, or oh my gosh, I need to get ready for Valentine's Day. I need to do XYZ. So why don't we, in the observation of our thoughts, why don't we label them? Why don't we label them planning, worrying, judging, whatever they might be? And then I want you, after you've labeled that thought or those thoughts, I want you to just let them go. I want you to let it pass. In this moment, I want to congratulate you. I want to congratulate you because this is your first step into taking control. You're already becoming the boss of your mind. You're already taking back that charge. I'm going to give you a couple of tools that will help guide you into, taking back your mental control. And these are practical tools. They're not, write your goals before bed and like do nothing about them. Like, no. I always try to give you guys tools that you can actually use. And sometimes some of you message me and they're like, you said this one thing and like, I think that's the one I'm going to go with. And so always treat this as a supermarket approach. You don't have to do everything I say. These are just some tools that can help you. Number 1, audit your thoughts. Audit them. Pay attention to them. Ask yourself, whenever you're experiencing a thought, whether it's good or bad, say, is this true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? And I'll even go a step further and say, if one of those things is like it's not helpful and it's not kind, even if, let's say, for example, it's true, quote unquote, the 2 out of 3, lets you know that thought isn't worth going forward with. Number 2, reframing. Reframe things. Shift from I can't handle this to this is uncomfortable, but I can learn. I can't do this anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do. I never want to go through this again. Like, why don't we rephrase? Rephrase. Saying, instead of saying I can't handle this, saying this is uncomfortable. I've never done this before. I don't know really how to handle this, but I can learn. Number 3, mental boundaries. Limit your dwelling time. The time that you sit, spiraling, the overthinking. You make the decision of choosing when to engage with certain thoughts. Sometimes, I have to admit to you that sometimes I'm an overthinker. I can literally sit and dwindle a thought in front of you like fast. Like if you've ever seen the cartoons when like the yarn undoes itself, I can do that with thoughts fast. And so I want to invite you to limit the time that you spend doing that. Limit it because it's not helping you. If the thought comes and goes, it doesn't change the fact that it came, but it does change what it does for you emotionally, and it puts you in a position of controlling and having those boundaries. Number 4, language awareness. This one is probably my favorite tool because I've done several episodes on this podcast about What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. You guys know that I have read What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Chad Helmstetter several times in my life, in my adult life, and I can't recommend it enough. And the reason is because I know for sure that words are magic. Whatever you say comes to fruition. Literally, I have a friend who was one day texting me and was like, I don't know how much more I can take. And she explained the situation to me. She said whatever she said to me, and she was like, everything just keeps going to shit. I don't know how much more I can take. Less than 12 hours later, the following morning, she texts me, and because I said to her, I was like, you need to reframe yourself, like respectfully, not respectfully. You need to reframe what it is that you're saying. Like, watch what you say. Words are magic. And lo and behold, less than 12 hours later, she texts me and was like, I shouldn't have said that because XYZ happened this morning. And I think language awareness is like, I could do a whole topic of that on its own. But I just want you to pay attention to the times that you say always, never, and can't. Because those words and several others, they shape your reality. They shape your reality. They shape what it is that you call into your life, what it is that you speak, and how that comes to fruition. So I want to invite you this week to take some of these tools, and I want you to go out there and apply them to your career, your relationships, any challenges that you're facing right now. Maybe your confidence and your self-worth. Pay attention to your thoughts. Later today, because you're listening to this in the morning, later today, when you look in the mirror, when you're washing your hands, what are you saying to yourself? Or maybe that's you're having a challenge with your spouse, and maybe you guys are just a little bit on the outs. Maybe you're going through a roommate phase. I want you to pay attention to your thoughts. I want you to pay attention to those things that are coming to you. And I want you to be cognizant of how you speak to yourself in your mind. I've watched different people, they on YouTube and different things like that. They make videos of like get ready with me and that kind of thing. And they'll be trying something on and they're like, oh my gosh, this looks so cute. I look so cute in this. It's so important for you to go out there and speak kindly to yourself and speak kindly to what it is that you're seeing, whether that's about you or someone else, because it rewires your brain. Those small little observations of your brain, of that mental control is really what shifts your life for you to be able to take back that control over time. Leadership starts in the mind. So whether that's leadership in your home, leadership of your life, or literally leadership of your mind, it starts internally. Being the boss is not controlling everything. I know that that's a common misconception, like you're bossy because you want to be in control of everything. No. Being a boss, especially a boss of your mind, is choosing what thoughts to follow. It's deciding that you're no longer wanting to be in autopilot. You don't need to have a perfect mind. You just need to have a conscious one. So this week I want to say to you, practice responding instead of reacting. I want you to ask yourself, what thought am I letting run the show? In closing, I want to leave you guys with a book, as I typically try to do. And that book is called Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. And in this book, it talks about how your beliefs, your thoughts, they shape your success, your resilience, your growth. It's practical application about mental control. It leads you in the direction that growth begins the moment you challenge a story you're telling yourself. It's a really good book. I have it on my list to read in the next couple of weeks. So definitely check that book out. That's not sponsored, but I will put the author's information in the show notes. And before we end this episode, I want to encourage you to leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review. We definitely appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Come back again next week for another episode of You the Boss podcast.